Walter Payton Rookie Card, Complete Collector's Guide, plus values. Once upon a time, you could have owned a Walter Payton rookie card for about the same price you would have paid for a Bob Horner rookie card, more or less. Well, you don't believe me? Well, I don't have much in the way of proof, other than a story from a card show that I attended about in 1984. Back in those days, Horner was still young and basking in the glory of his early home run barrages, and hobby was really starting to cook. Well, the baseball end of the hobby anyway. But football, basketball, and hockey? Not so much. So, anyway, at this particular show, at our big local city convention center, there was plenty of Horner rookie cards up for sale, all of them in thick plastic holders, and all of them under the glass of the dealer showcases. The going rate started at $3 and ranged upwards to 5 and maybe just a bit beyond that. Meanwhile, over in the corner of the showroom, one hapless dealer had decided to devote about half of his space to football cards. They were all pretty dirt cheap when compared to the baseball brethren, but one hunk of gridiron cardboard stood out to me. A complete set of 1976 Topps football cards, complete with a Walter Payton rookie card in a semi rigid holder, the only card afforded such royal treatment. The asking price for the set? $10 for the whole thing. And at least in my memory, the Payton seemed like it was in really nice shape. And that was the asking price. If there was one thing I've learned from a decade of wandering card shows like a lost puppy, is that $5 of real life cash in the sweaty palms of a rabid young collector is usually enough to buy a $10 card. But I didn't buy that Peyton and his set mates. Luckily, I didn't buy the Horner rookie card either. More than likely, I plunked down my pennies to add another Pete Rose or Mike Schmidt to my collection. Totally worth it, of course, but I really do wish I had that sweetness card now. Because now, well, a Walter Payton rookie card is something that commands sort of a price that you might expect from the greatest running back to ever don shoulder pads, right? Jim Brown, Barry Sanders, Curtis Dickey. But I'm a 1980s Bears homer and always will be. And you know what's really great about the 1976 Topps Walter Payton card that you covet? Or at least that I covet? It's not the only Walter Payton rookie card out there. Tell you what, it's true. Once again, I sense your disbelief. So let's get into the meat of this thing finally. What follows then is a complete rundown of Walter Payton rookie cards, along with approximate values, per actual recent sales as of September 2022. 1976 Coke Bears disc, Walter Payton rookie card. In the mid 1970s, the still fleeting hobby suddenly became awash in little paper cardboard discs, featuring baseball players and to a lesser extent, players from other sports. Isley discs, Crane discs, Burger Chef discs, Carousel snack discs, it seemed like every food product was fair game. All of these little circles of sports card fun look pretty much the same. Black and white player images fading into a white background at the margins, colorful enclosing circular borders around the edges of the disc, player information in a typeface around the player's head, company name at the top, and additional company advertising on the back of the disc. The more of these discs that you saw, the more apparent it became, too, that the players weren't sporting any team logos on their hats or helmets, if they were wearing any. So what gave? Well, what gave was a company called Michael Schechter Associates, or MSA, landed contracts with a slew of food companies of all ilk to produce baseball cards, or discs as this case may have been, to be included as premiums with and or advertising for various foodstuffs being offered up. In order to include player likenesses, MSA had to land contracts with each sports players union, and you'll see those union logos on the fronts of the discs too. What you generally won't see, though, is the actual league logo, meaning MSA likely didn't have permission to use team logos, hence the hatless heads and the airbrush caps. So, what does all this have to do with Walter Payton rookie cards? Well, as luck would have it, MSA produced 22 disc set featuring members of the Chicago Bears for Coca-Cola in 1976, just in time to sweep up a certain young running back. In this case, each disc was attached to a small ring made of the same thin cardboard, which then hung from the neck of a 16-ounce glass Coke bottle of an old 8-pack carton that used to swallow an entire grocery store aisle. The disc could be separated from the tab by tearing along the perforated arc. One curious bit here, at least as it relates to MSA issues, is that these Chicago discs do flash the Bears logo. So either MSA ponied up for an NFL license in this case, maybe made some side deal with the Bears somehow, or just flouted the rules and asked for forgiveness, or not, later. Whatever the case, you don't see a lot of these Walter Payton rookie discs on the market these days, and the version with the tab is somewhat more scarce than the disc alone. The ones that do come up for sale, though, tend to be in pretty good condition. Expect to pay $700 or more for a tab version in PSA 9, and closer to $900 for a Perfect 10. Without the tabs, the price drops just a bit, and most recent sales have been for PSA 10 copies in the $600 to $700 range. 1976 Crane Discs Walter Payton Rookie Card. So if this crane disc looks somewhat familiar, maybe it's because you washed your potato chips down with a bottle of Coke back in 1976. And maybe you snagged a Walter Payton rookie disc from both product purchases. And also maybe you noticed that the two discs featured the exact same photo of the sprouting sweetness. Or the other option is that you remember the Coke Payton disc from the section before and were able to keep a mental image for more than a few seconds. Either way, you're right. These discs are exactly the same. Modulo, the color band, the company name, the rightly missing Bears logo on the Crane version, and the with tab option the Coke version offers. And then there's this, the Cranes are pretty much everywhere. So you can expect lower prices, somewhere from 50 to 150 for a PSA 9 and more like 250 to 300 for a PSA 10. 1976 Saga discs, Walter Payton rookie card. The Saga discs, on the other hand, are not everywhere. In fact, they're hardly anywhere, or at least they're hardly anywhere anymore. In fact, the backs of these things say Saga Philadelphia School District, so you can pretty much narrow down where you might have found them back in the bicentennial year. Like the other discs, the Sagas pretty much only come on the market in top shape, with all four sold from 2018 through the fall of 2021 showing up in PSA 10. That last disc sold for a heavy $1,500. 1976 Topps Walter Payton rookie card, number 148. Now, with all those appetizers under our belts, we arrive at the main course of Walter Payton rookie cards, the one that you came here expecting to read about in the first place. Payton himself was a big name in the sport before his first pro touch. After all, he was a high-profile first-round pick, fourth overall, in the 1975 NFL Draft, and he managed a respectable 679 yards and 7 touchdowns for the Chicago Bears in his first season. All of that was reflected on the back of his rookie card the next year. Then, while the 1976 Topps rookie cards were still fresh and popping out of live wax packs, Payton popped his first 1,000-yard season. That fall, he rushed for 1,390 ticks and scored 13 touchdowns before really going off in 1977. An NFL-leading 1,852 rushing yards and 14 touchdowns landed him the NFL MVP award, of course. Unbelievably, it would be the only time Sweetness would lead the league in rushing yardage, though he did pace the NFL in total yards in both 1977 and 1978. Statistical league leader or not, Payton was a bona fide superstar by the end of his third season, and it didn't take long for folks to start talking about him as one of the all-time greats. The man more than held up his end of the bargain, clicking off all Pro and Pro Bowl honors like seconds on a game clock leading up to the 2-minute warning. The only thing holding back Payton's legacy was a general moribund Bears team that made the playoffs just twice in his first 9 seasons. But just months after Payton broke Jim Brown's all-time record for career rushing yards, the Bears were finally clicking, making it all the way to the NFC Championship game before falling to the San Francisco 49ers. The next year, of course, the Bears put together one of the most dominant seasons in NFL history. By then, Payton's legacy in the game had long been cemented, though 1,551 yards rushing and a second-place MVP finish didn't hurt any. For as great as Payton was in the 1970s and 1980s, though, and for as much as the football world rightly idolized him, none of that did a whole lot for the profile of Sweetness football cards. It wasn't just Payton either. The gridiron hobby lagged far, far behind baseball for decades in terms of overall popularity and card prices, and even a general collecting boom couldn't fix that overnight. What did start to move the needle for football, though, was the high profile budding of Joe Montana's legend with the San Francisco 49ers, and then the amazing rookie class of 1983, which led to the amazing rookie card class of 1984. Dan Marino, John Elway, Eric Dickerson. Payton was the preeminent active NFL legend as the hobby began to percolate, and we all scrambled to bring his old cards into the limelight. His 1976 Topps rookie card became a familiar and iconic sight for the 1980s, which gave way to the 1990s, and the prices began to creep upwards. You would have been hard pressed to buy a 1976 Topps football set in nice condition for $10 in 1990, in other words. But out of the limelight after his retirement following the 1987 season, Peyton's cards didn't receive any direct boost from his play on the field. There was none. And only a mild perturbation from his election to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton in 1993. Mostly, the continued value increase from Peyton's rookie cards have ridden the overall rising tide of the football card market in the ensuing decades. But you can clearly see a trend by looking at the actual sale prices for this classic card over the last few years. Heading into the pandemic, PSA 8 copies for the Payton rookie card were selling for around $400 a pop. By the time the Super Bowl was played in February of 2021, it was topping 2000. By September of 2022, the card had settled into the $1,000 to $1,500 range. And if you bump up the condition to PSA 9, you'll be looking at the starting price tags just north of $5,000. And if you're aiming for a perfect 10, better have a cool 100 grand or more stashed away to support your sweetness tooth. No matter how you look at it, that Walter Payton rookie card has come a long way from its days lurking in the dark corners of a baseball card show, just hoping for a little daylight, a hole to bust through. And though we may have missed the stutter step and stiff arm explosion, Payton did indeed break through, and now streaks eternally across the hobby firmament. WaxPackGods.com